Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into another incredible story from the fascinating world of rare coins where mistakes turn ordinary pocket change into treasures worth hundreds of millions. And in this case we are going to explore the jaw-dropping story of the 1997 Washington quarter-dollar coin that has shocked collectors and historians alike by reaching an astonishing estimated value of $333 million because of the unique combination of errors and mistakes that occurred during its minting, and because of the possibilities these errors open up in the collector market, making it one of the most valuable and mysterious coins ever to surface. And what makes this story so engaging is that the 1997 quarter was never expected to be anything more than a common circulation coin struck by the Philadelphia Mint in massive quantities, yet somehow amidst the millions of quarters that were produced that year, a handful of extraordinary examples were struck with such dramatic and layered minting errors that their existence challenges everything we thought we knew about mint quality control and raises the question of how such pieces not only escaped detection but also survived in circulation long enough to spark the imaginations of numismatists around the globe. And when we talk about the 1997 quarter being worth $333 million, we are not just pulling a number out of thin air. We are diving into a world where rarity, condition, provenance, and collector frenzy collide to push values into the stratosphere, and in this script we will examine all the specific errors that might exist on such a coin, including double die, obverse strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, missing clad layers, die clashes, wrong planchette strikes, multiple strikes, rotated dies, weak strikes, and even combinations of these errors happening on a single coin. And every one of these errors adds layers of intrigue that fuel the possibility of such astronomical values in auction houses where passionate collectors with deep pockets battle to own a piece of history that is not just a coin but an unrepeatable accident of metallurgy, artistry, and chance. So imagine holding a 1997 quarter where Washington's profile on the obverse is doubled so clearly that you can see ghost-like outlines of his hair, his jawline, and even the word Liberty doubled across the field, making it one of the most spectacular double die errors imaginable. Now add to that the possibility of the reverse side showing the eagle misaligned, or even partially missing due to a misfeed in the press, and suddenly you have a coin where both sides are presenting dramatic minting mistakes. And when coins like this exist, collectors don't just see them as metal discs, they see them as miracles of survival, as relics that defied the odds and made it past the minting floor quality checks, past the banks, and past years of circulation, only to finally emerge in the hands of someone curious enough to notice the abnormalities. And as we break down the possible errors that could appear on a 1997 quarter, it is important to recognize that some errors are rare on their own, but when combined on a single coin they push the rarity into an entirely new category. For example, an off-center strike of just 5 to 10% is fairly common, but an off-center strike of 50% that still retains a full readable date and mint mark is dramatically rare and worth thousands on its own. Now imagine a 1997 quarter struck 50% off-center, but also showing a clear double die obverse, and then struck on a copper cent planchette instead of a nickel-clad quarter planchette. That type of cumulative error is so extraordinary that it becomes a one-of-one piece of coin that could never be replicated, and that is the exact type of coin that could attract a price tag in the hundreds of millions because it represents the pinnacle of mint error collecting. And when we imagine the condition of such a coin, we can speculate further, because if this 1997 quarter was found in pristine uncirculated condition with sharp details, strong luster, and minimal wear, then the combination of rarity and condition explodes its value even more. And in the world of numismatics, condition is king. A coin that is rare but heavily worn may be valuable, but a coin that is both rare and pristine is the stuff of legend, and legends are what collectors pay fortunes to own. And as we continue to unravel this story, we must consider how such errors happen and what makes the 1997 quarter uniquely prone to them. The minting process involves preparing die, striking planches under immense pressure, and maintaining consistent quality, and yet in 1997 Philadelphia was striking millions of coins daily, and any small misalignment, clogged die, or planchette misfeed could cause dramatic mistakes. But what makes certain coins from that year stand out is that Multiple mistakes happened at once as if fate itself conspired to produce something extraordinary, and when numismatists discover these coins they document them, study them, and sometimes speculate whether such coins were created by accident or perhaps by intentional mint employee experimentation or oversight, and in either case the rarity of the result is undeniable, and as collectors flock to auctions hoping to catch a glimpse of one of these 1997 P quarters, the bidding wars drive prices into the unimaginable, with wealthy investors eager to diversify their holdings by adding a tangible piece of American history that is both finite and irreplaceable. And when we talk about the value of $333 million, it is not just the result of era and condition, it is also the result of storytelling, provenance, and collector mythology, because in the world of rare coins a story adds value, and the story of a 1997 P quarter that escaped the mint with multiple catastrophic errors only to be discovered decades later is the kind of narrative that drives collectors to open their wallets wider than ever and think about the ripple effect of such a discovery, because once word spreads that a 1997 P quarter sold for hundreds of millions, ordinary people begin checking their change more closely, sparking nationwide treasure hunts where every coin jar, every cash register, and every coin roll search could potentially reveal another multi-million-dollar mistake, and this frenzy adds even more demand as the possibility of finding another one grows smaller with each passing year, increasing the rarity of the known specimen and pushing values higher and higher. And beyond the financial side, there is also the cultural impact, because coins like this remind us that perfection is not what makes something valuable. Sometimes it is the imperfections, the missteps, the accidental deviations from the standard that make history, and this is why people fall in love with era coins, because they tell a story of chance, survival, and uniqueness that perfectly struck coins can never tell. And the 1997 P quarter worth $333 million is the ultimate symbol of this philosophy. It is the embodiment of the idea that one small slip in the minting process can create a fortune, and that in our everyday lives treasures may be hiding in plain sight in our pockets, purses, and coin jars. And so as we reflect on the errors that could make this coin so valuable, let us list the possibilities again, from double dies to off-centers to wrong planches to die cracks to missing clad layers to rotated dies to broad strikes and to combinations thereof. Every one of these possibilities adds layers to the mystery, and when combined into a single coin they create the perfect storm of rarity and desirability. And when auction houses list such a coin, the headlines write themselves with words like once in a lifetime discovery or unparalleled rarity, and the buzz generated fuels the fever of collectors worldwide. And for those fortunate enough to even see such a coin in person, the experience is unforgettable, because you are not just looking at a piece of metal, you are looking at an accident that became art, an error that became history, and a coin that became priceless. And as we conclude this exploration into the mythical value of the 1997 P quarter worth $333 million, let us remember that the world of coins is full of surprises, and that the next great discovery could be waiting for you in the most ordinary of places. And this is why we share these stories, because they remind us that sometimes the most valuable things in life are not the ones created perfectly, but the ones that carry the marks of imperfection, survival, and rarity that set them apart from the rest. And the 1997 P quarter is the shining example of this truth, a coin that started as common currency, but through a cascade of minting mistakes became a symbol of unimaginable wealth and fascination. And if you are ever lucky enough to stumble across one of these treasures, hold onto it, because you may very well be holding the key to one of the greatest stories in numismatic history, and the next chapter of that story could be yours to tell. And with that, we invite you to continue exploring the incredible world of rare coins, because who knows, the next time you check your pocket change you might just find the miracle that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. And with every discovery we are reminded again that history, luck, and value can come together in the smallest of packages, like a simple 1997 P quarter that through its errors became a $333 million legend. Next, 1995 P quarter dollar. Today, as we once again dive into the incredible and often unbelievable world of rare coins, where small pieces of metal struck for everyday use suddenly become treasures worth more than mansions, cars, or even private islands, and today's focus is the 1995p Washington $quarter coin, which is one of the most jaw-dropping stories in all of numismatics because a single example of this coin has been estimated to be worth as much as $122 million, not because of what it was meant to be, but because of what went wrong during the minting process. The combination of mint errors, production anomalies, and survival rarity that catapulted it into legendary status. And as we explore this, we are going to look into the errors, the mistakes, and all the possibilities that make this coin not just a collector's item, but a symbol of how imperfections can turn something ordinary into something extraordinary. So let's begin with the basics of the 1995p quarter, which was struck at the Philadelphia Mint as part of the standard Washington Quarter series, a coin millions of Americans handled without even thinking about it. And yet hidden among these countless coins was one or more examples that defied the rules of minting and showcased errors so dramatic and so layered that the numismatic community had no choice but to pay attention. And this is where the story takes off, because in order for a coin to reach astronomical values like $122 million, it cannot be an ordinary coin with a minor error. It must be something so unique, so bizarre, so improbable that it becomes a one of one or close to it. And for the 1995p quarter, those factors included errors like double die obverse strikes where George Washington's face, liberty, and I in God we trust could appear doubled in a way so bold that even a casual observer could see it without magnification. Off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, yet the date and mint mark remain visible, creating an unusual balance of distortion and recognizability. And wrong planchette errors where the coin could have been struck on a copper cent planchette or even on a nickel or foreign coin blank, giving it a shocking weight difference and metallic composition that immediately stands out. And if you add to this the possibility of multiple errors occurring simultaneously, you begin to understand why a single surviving coin could ignite collector frenzy and skyrocket in value. Imagine a 1995p quarter that not only has a doubled obverse but is also 50% off-center and missing its clad layer, so that instead of the normal shiny nickel color it displays a deep copper tone from the exposed core. That combination alone would make it virtually one of a kind, and rarity of that magnitude is what investors and high-end collectors crave, because in the world of coins, rarity drives value and provenance enhances it further. And as we think about this coin, it is important to visualize how such mistakes happen at the mint, because the minting process is designed to create uniformity, with planches fed into presses at high-speed, dies aligned with precision, and quality checks performed constantly. Yet in spite of these measures, coins like the 1995p quarter slipped through because of mechanical failures like misaligned dies, clogged dies, multiple strikes, or human oversight that allowed these mistakes to go undetected until the coins were released into circulation. Now, consider the drama of a coin that survives circulation for decades with its errors intact despite being exchanged hundreds or thousands of times, until one day someone notices something is wrong and realizes that this is not just a coin, it is a fortune waiting to be discovered. Stories like this have played out in numismatic history before, where coins once dismissed as pocket change later became multi-million-dollar rarities because someone finally paid attention. And that is why collectors pore over every detail of coins from certain years, hoping to find lightning in a bottle. And for 1995p quarters, the lightning strike came in the form of overlapping mint mistakes that transformed an ordinary 25-cent piece into a $100 million wonder. And if we explore specific errors further, we find that die cracks and die breaks on the obverse or reverse could produce raised lines or cuds that distort the design while still leaving the coin date visible. Rotated die errors could leave Washington's portrait upright while the eagle on the reverse is rotated 90 or even 180 degrees, creating a surreal twist. Weak strikes could blur details due to insufficient pressure, while multiple strikes could cause overlapping images of Washington's face or the eagle, making the coin look like it had been printed twice. And when all these anomalies intersect, the result is a coin so fascinating that it becomes a work of art created by accident. And as collectors bid for such a specimen, the value soars not only because of rarity but because of narrative and mystique, because in the high-end coin market, buyers are not just purchasing metal, they are purchasing history, rarity, and bragging rights. And That is why when a 1995p quarter with a perfect storm of errors finally surfaced, it became the talk of the numismatic world and was estimated to be worth $122 million, making it one of the most valuable error coins ever imagined. And this is not just about value in terms of dollars, it is about the cultural impact of such discoveries, because once news spreads that a 1995p quarter could be worth that much, ordinary people begin checking their change, hunting for oddities, scrutinizing every quarter they handle, sparking a treasure hunt across the nation where the smallest details could mean the difference between 25 cents and millions of dollars. This frenzy creates even more demand as the rarity of known examples becomes even clearer and scarcity pushes values higher still. And for those lucky enough to actually see such a coin in person, it is a surreal experience, because you are holding not just a coin but a piece of history that survived against all odds. A piece of metal that carries within it the story of minting, error, chance, survival and discovery, and that is why people are willing to pay sums as large as $122 million, because they are buying the ultimate rarity, a one-of-a-kind object that no one else can own and no one else can replicate. And if we imagine further the possibilities surrounding condition, the story becomes even more incredible, because condition is everything in numismatics, and if a 1995p quarter with these dramatic errors survived in near mint or uncirculated condition with its luster intact, sharp details and no heavy wear, then it would not just be rare, it would be pristine, and in the world of high-stakes coin collecting, pristine rarity equals record-shattering value. And the auction world thrives on records, because headlines about a coin selling for 9 figures fuel the imagination of collectors and investors everywhere, and remind us that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary of places. And as we reflect on all this, we realize that what makes the 1995p quarter so fascinating is not just the monetary value, but the lesson it carries, that sometimes mistakes create the most valuable outcomes, and that in the pursuit of perfection, it is the imperfections that capture our hearts and imaginations. And this is why collectors will continue to search, examine and cherish coins like this, because they represent not just wealth but mystery and wonder, and the chance that something extraordinary could still be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who looks closely enough. So the story of the 1995p quarter worth $122 million is not just a story of mint errors and collector value, it is a story of chance, of history, of human curiosity, and of the endless possibilities that make coin collecting such a magical pursuit. And for every person listening today, this story is also an invitation to look closer at the coins you handle every day, because you never know if you might be holding the next great discovery, the next coin that will redefine value and history, and perhaps one day the next $100 million legend. Last 1998p quarter dollar. Today, as we take another exciting journey into the world of rare and valuable coins, where everyday pocket change transforms into legendary treasures worth fortunes beyond imagination, and today's story is about the 1998p Washington quarter dollar coin, a coin that under normal circumstances should only be worth its face value of 25 cents, but because of extraordinary and unrepeatable minting mistakes and error combinations, one of these coins has shocked collectors worldwide by reaching an estimated value of $188 million, and the reason behind such astronomical value lies not in what the coin was supposed to be, but in what went wrong when it was created, because the 1998p quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint is generally a common piece that's circulated by the millions, yet hidden among those millions is a version so unique, so riddled with anomalies and errors, that its rarity catapults it to the top of the numismatic world. And as we dive deep into this story, we will uncover all of the mint errors and production mishaps that could have contributed to this coin's unimaginable value, including double die obverse errors where George Washington's portrait, along with the inscriptions "Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust" and the date 1998, could appear doubled in ghost-like layers across the surface. Off-center strikes where the design is pushed far to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal but still showing a complete readable date and mint mark, making it visually dramatic. Broad strike errors where the coin is struck outside of its retaining collar, causing it to expand unnaturally in size yet still keeping all of its features visible. Wrong planchette strikes where a quarter design is accidentally stamped onto a foreign coin blank or even onto a nickel or cent planchette, giving it a strange weight and color. Missing clad layer errors where the nickel layer is absent on one or both sides, exposing a copper-colored surface that makes the coin look instantly unusual. And multi-strike errors where the coin receives 2 or 3 impressions at slightly different angles, causing Washington's face or the eagle on the reverse to appear doubled or tripled, almost like a 3D hologram. And when you imagine these errors not existing in isolation but layered together in one specimen, you begin to see how this 1998p quarter became the holy grail of mint errors and worth a staggering $188 million. And the beauty of such a coin lies not just in the physical mistakes but in the rarity of its survival, because the minting process is designed to eliminate errors with careful inspection machines and human checks constantly pulling flawed coins off the line, and yet some manage to slip through and circulate for years or decades before being noticed, and that is what gives them an aura of mystery, because every time an error coin is discovered it raises questions of how it survived, how it escaped detection, and how it finally came into the hands of a collector. And the 1998p quarter, valued at $188 million, embodies this mystery perfectly, because it shows that even in modern times with advanced technology, a one-of-a-kind mistake can happen, and when it does, its value transcends the metal it is made of and becomes about history, uniqueness, and the frenzy of collectors who will stop at nothing to own it. And if we consider each potential error in detail, we see how each adds layers of value. A doubled die is already worth thousands on its own, depending on the strength of the doubling. An off-center strike of more than 50% with a visible date can also fetch thousands. A missing clad layer makes a coin instantly desirable, and rare wrong planchette strikes are dramatic errors that excite collectors because they are visually obvious and easy to identify. Rotated dies where one side of the coin is perfectly upright while the other is rotated at 90 or 180 degrees create surreal mismatched designs, and die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchette in between, leaving faint outlines of the reverse eagle on Washington's portrait or vice versa, create ghostly impressions that look like secret engravings. All of these errors alone can attract attention, but when combined they produce what collectors call a perfect storm, and it is coins like this perfect storm example of the 1998p quarter that achieve values so high that the wider world outside of coin collecting takes notice, and headlines are made about a simple 25-cent piece being worth hundreds of millions, and this drives everyday people to check their pockets, purses, and coin jars, hoping they too might stumble across a hidden fortune. And that wave of excitement pushes the story even further into legend, because when ordinary people are inspired to hunt for rare coins, demand in the market increases, and demand always raises value. And in the case of this particular 1998p quarter worth $188 million, the demand was so overwhelming that it has become one of the most discussed coins in modern numismatic history, and condition plays a huge role in this as well, because an error coin that has survived decades in circulation without heavy wear, maintaining sharp details, original mint luster, and minimal scratches can multiply in value compared to one that is worn and damaged. And if this 1998p quarter exists in uncirculated or near mint condition, then its uniqueness is paired with beauty, making it even more desirable and pushing its auction price into stratospheric levels. And the auction market itself thrives on rarity and spectacle, with wealthy collectors and investors battling each other in bidding wars that break records and set new benchmarks for what a rare coin can be worth. And when a coin like this comes to market, the frenzy creates headlines, and the headlines create mythology. And in numismatics, mythology and provenance are just as valuable as rarity itself, because they give the coin a story that future owners can cherish and retell. And if we take a moment to imagine the story of this 1998p quarter, it becomes even more magical, because it may have been released unknowingly into circulation, passed through countless hands, buying groceries, paying for gas, or being given as change before someone finally looked closely enough to notice that something was strange about it. Perhaps it weighed differently. Perhaps it looked copper-colored instead of silver. Perhaps the design was obviously off-center, and in that moment of realization the coin stopped being a quarter and became a treasure, and from that point on it entered the world of collectors, dealers, and eventually auction houses where it achieved immortality as one of the most valuable era coins in existence. And this story reminds us of one of the great truths of collecting, that perfection is not always the source of value. Sometimes it is imperfection that makes something priceless, and in the world of coins that could not be more true, because mint eras carry with them a sense of rarity, survival, and chance that perfect coins never could. And that is why this 1998p quarter, valued at $188 million, is such a powerful example of what makes numismatics so thrilling. It shows us that the smallest details matter, that mistakes can become miracles, and that treasures can be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice them. And as we think about all the types of errors that could make such a coin valuable — double dies, off centers, wrong planches, missing layers, multiple strikes, rotated dies, die clashes, and broad strikes — we realize that every single one of these errors is a possibility, and when combined they create something unrepeatable and priceless. And when collectors encounter something unrepeatable, the bidding has no ceiling, because the value is whatever the most determined collector is willing to pay. And in this case it was an unbelievable $188 million. And the legacy of this coin is not just its value, but the excitement it inspires, the way it makes people look more closely at the change in their pockets, the way it reminds us that history and luck are intertwined, and that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that almost never existed at all. And so the 1998p quarter, worth $188 million, stands as a symbol of the magic of coin collecting, a coin born of mistakes, transformed into a legend, and destined to inspire collectors and dreamers for generations to come. And as you listen to this story, let it remind you that the next time you receive a quarter in your change, it might be worth more than you could ever imagine, and perhaps, just perhaps, you could be the one to discover the next great numismatic treasure hiding in plain sight, just as this one was. And that possibility is what keeps the world of rare coins alive, exciting, and endlessly full of wonder.